Winning in the Real Madrid stadium, winning in Liverpool not once but twice, beating Ajax and winning the European Cup not once but twice? This is not Man United, but a team who rose from the third division. But what is surprising is how they're doing this again, but this time under Nuno Espirito Santo. This is how Nottingham Forest went on to win the Champions League from the third division. In the late 1970s, a scrappy underdog club defied every odds stacked against them. They didn't just rise to the top, they dominated, knocking out giants and etching their name in football's history books. At the heart of this miracle was a man with a sharp tongue, unmatched vision, and a knack for turning nobodies into legends, Brian Clough. It's the early 1970s and Nottingham Forest is, well, not exactly setting the football world on fire. They're stuck in the second division, just limping along, going nowhere fast. To make matters worse, the club wasn't exactly swimming in cash. The facilities were outdated, the squad lacked any real spark and morale. Let's just say it was buried somewhere deep under the Trent Bridge. Forest was like that friend we all have, the one who used to show promise but fell off the radar. Sure, they had their moments, the club even won the FA Cup in 1959, but by the 70s, that glory was a distant memory. They were the kind of team people barely noticed unless their favourite club had to play them. Now here's where it gets juicy. This is the part in every great story where things look bleak before the hero swoops in, and boy, did Nottingham Forest need a hero. And that's where Brian Clough comes in. Now, if you don't know who Brian Clough is, let me paint you a picture. Think of someone with the confidence of Muhammad Ali.
There's some fella in London, England named some Brian Clough. I heard all the way in Indonesia that this fella talks too much. They say he's another Muhammad Ali. There's just one Muhammad Ali. I'm the talker. Now, Clough, I've had enough. Stop it.
Well, are you going to stop it?
No, I want to fight him.
The charm of a Hollywood star and the sharp tongue of a stand-up comedian on a roast night. This guy was a walking headline, never afraid to say exactly what he thought, whether you liked it or not. But behind all that bravado was a tactical genius who understood the game like few others. In January 1975, Clough took over as manager of Nottingham Forest, and let's just say his arrival wasn't exactly greeted with parades and fireworks. People doubted him. After all, his stint at Leeds United had ended in disaster. He only lasted only 44 days there. But here's the thing about Clough, he thrived on proving people wrong. From day one, he made it clear that mediocrity wasn't an option. He didn't care if the players thought he was too harsh or if the fans thought his ideas were too bold. He was there to win, and he demanded everyone else get on board with that vision. He once said, if a player isn't interfering with play or the ball, then what exactly is he doing on the pitch? That's classic Clough, right? Direct, no nonsense, and just a little bit cocky. And then came Peter Taylor, Clough's trusted right-hand man. If Clough was the fire, Taylor was the ice, calm, methodical, and the master at spotting talent where others saw nothing. Together, they were the ultimate dream team, like Batman and Robin but for football. Slowly but surely, Clough and Taylor started transforming Nottingham Forest. They didn't have money to throw around, so they had to be smart, finding players who were undervalued but fit perfectly into Clough's system. And Clough wasn't just shaping a team, he was building a mentality. He convinced these players, some of whom had been written off by other clubs, that they were capable of greatness. It wasn't an overnight transformation. Forest didn't suddenly go from nobodies to champions in a season, but you could see the shift, the energy, the belief, the ambition. They'd gone from being passengers on a sinking ship to part of a crew steering toward uncharted waters. By the time Forest clawed their way into the first division in 1977, something special was brewing. But even then, no one, and I mean no one, could have predicted what was about to happen next. But before we talk about that, please take a moment to subscribe to Football Historia. It would help us out a lot. Thanks a lot. So where are we? Alright, Forest had just clawed their way out of the second division in 1977, and honestly, most people were just waiting for them to crash and burn in the first division. I mean, this wasn't just a step up, this was a giant leap. It's like going from playing your guitar in a garage band to headlining Glastonbury. People thought Forest would be out of their depth. But here's the thing, Brian Clough didn't care about what people thought. He thrived on proving everyone wrong, and boy did he have plans to make some noise. For most teams, the first season in the top flight is about survival. Stay above the relegation zone, pick up a few scrappy wins, and call it a success. I mean, you can see Luton, Norwich and Sheffield United do this. But Clough, survival wasn't enough for him. He had his eyes on the top prize, and that's where this story takes a turn from impressive underdog to absolute fairy tale. As the 1977-78 season kicked off, Forest didn't just survive in the First Division, they dominated. From the very first whistle, you could tell this team had something special. They weren't flashy or full of household names, they were incredibly organised, disciplined and most importantly fearless. And let's talk about their defence for a second because it was next level. Brian Clough knew that if you could shut out the opposition, you'd always have a chance to win. So he built his team from the back. The signing of goalkeeper Peter Shilton was an absolute masterstroke. Shilton wasn't just good, he was ridiculous. He pulled off saves that defied logic, like he had magnets in his glove. But it wasn't just Shilton. The whole defence was like an impenetrable wall. And when they did concede, they had this unshakable belief that they'd just go down the other end and score. It's the kind of confidence you can't teach. It has to come from within, and from a manager who never lets them doubt themselves for a second. Even in the midfield they had warriors. John McGovern, Forest captain, was Clough's on-pitch general. He wasn't the flashiest player, but he was the glue that held everything together. A proper workhorse, the kind of guy who'd put in a shift no matter what. Week after week, Forest kept winning. They took on the big boys, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, and didn't just hold their own. They sometimes outplayed them. Teams started fearing Forest, this newly promoted side that was supposed to be an easy 3 points. Suddenly, little old Nottingham Forest was sitting at the top of the league table, and people started to take notice. And you know what's wild? They didn't just win the league, they ran away with it. Forest finished the season with 64 points, 7 clear of Liverpool, who were no slouches themselves. Forest went 42 games unbeaten across 2 seasons. That's over a year of football without a single loss. Wrap your head around that for a second. It wasn't just their league performance either. They added the League Cup to their trophy cabinet, beating Liverpool in the final. Imagine that. Promotion, a league title, and a domestic cup all within 2 seasons. This wasn't just a good team, this was a dynasty in the making. By the end of the season, it was clear to everyone. Nottingham Forest wasn't just here to make up the numbers. They were here to win, and win they did. But this was just the beginning. The First Division title was amazing. But Clough and his men had set their sights on something even bigger. The European Cup. Yeah, you heard that right. The European Cup. Forest was about to take their Cinderella story to the grandest stage of them all. Stay with me because things are about to go from incredible to unbelievable. With their league title, Forest earned a ticket to the grandest club competition of them all, the European Cup. Now let's put this into perspective. Back in the day, the European Cup wasn't the fancy Champions League we know today. This was a competition where only the best teams from each country squared off. It was football's Mount Everest, and Forest, the new kids on the block, were about to try and conquer it. But let's be real, nobody thought they had a chance. The skeptics were loud, and honestly, could you blame them? This was Nottingham Forest. Not Real Madrid, not Bayern Munich, not even Liverpool, who were the reigning champions and a European powerhouse at the time. People expected Forest to bow out early, maybe put up a good fight and then quietly fade into the shadows. But Brian Clough wasn't having any of it. He thrived on the doubters. He loved proving people wrong, and the European Cup was his perfect stage to do just that. Forest's campaign started with an absolute banger, a first-round tie against none other than Liverpool. Yes, the reigning champions. But jumping in at the deep end. Everyone figured Forest would be unpunished. After all, Liverpool's stage stars on new cups and European nights to make the games. But Forest, they had other plans. The first leg of the season really Forest started with a 2-0 victory. Forest scored the goals and it was a team's great performance in the Giants. The second leg just underdogs anymore, they were legitimate contenders. Clough's strategy for the final was classic Forest, solid at the back, sharp on the counter, and disciplined in every phase of play. And once again, it worked like a charm. Trevor Francis, the man Forest had broken the British transfer record assigned earlier that season, stepped up in the 45th minute to score the only goal of the game. It wasn't just any goal, it was a header from a perfect cross by John Robertson, Forest's unsung hero. Francis darted in at the far post, leapt like a salmon, and nodded the ball past the Malmo goalkeeper. It was a moment of pure magic, and it sealed Nottingham Forest's place in history. The final whistle blew, and there it was. Nottingham Forest, the club that had been in the second division just a few years prior, were now European champions. It was surreal, like something out of a dream. Clough, of course, played it cool afterward, as if winning the European Cup was all part of the plan. But deep down, you just know he was savouring every second of it. The doubters silenced, the skeptics eating their words. And just like that, Nottingham Forest had gone from local heroes to international legends. But wait, we're not done yet, because Forest wasn't content with just one European crown. No, they had their eyes set on doing it again, and this time in a better way. The 1979-80 season rolled around, and you'd think the pressure would have been crushing. I mean, every team in Europe now had Forest in their crosshairs. No one was underestimating them anymore. But if anything, Clough and his squad thrived under the spotlight. Forest started their title defence like seasoned pros, winning 2-0 at home and dispatching their opponents with the kind of calm efficiency you'd expect from a team that had been dominating Europe for years, not just one season. And the way they went about it was so Forest. They didn't have the flashiest players or the biggest budget. They didn't care about playing champagne football or making the highlight reels. What they cared about was winning, and boy were they good at it. Their defense was still rock solid. Their midfield was like a well-oiled machine, and their attack clinical. They didn't blow teams away with 5-0 thrashings, but they got the job done every single time. Clough had this ability to make his players believe they were invincible, and that belief carried them to the final once again after beating Ajax. This time, the stage was the Santiago Bernabeu in Madrid. Their opponents? Hamburg, a German powerhouse with the legendary Kevin Keegan leading the charge. The odds were stacked against Forest. Hamburg was the favourite. They had the big names, the pedigree, and let's face it, the confidence that comes with being a footballing giant. But here's where Forest's underdog spirit came into play. They didn't care about reputations. They didn't care about the odds. They just went out there and did what they always did. Fight for every ball, stick to their game plan, and trust each other completely. And then came the moment. In the 20th minute, John Robertson, Forest's wiry winger, who Clough once called a little fat guy who could play a bit, produced a bit of magic. With a quick turn and a rocket of a shot, he put Forest 1-0 up. The Bernabeu fell silent. Hamburg looked stunned. Forest, on the other hand, looked like they'd been here 100 times before. For the rest of the match, it was classic Forest. They defended like their lives depended on it, with Peter Shilton pulling off save after save. Every time Hamburg thought they'd found a way through, there was a Forest player there to block, tackle, or clear the ball to safety. It was like watching a masterclass in resilience. When the final whistle blew, the scoreline read Nottingham Forest 1, Hamburg 0. Against all odds. Again, Forest had done it. Back-to-back European Cups. A team that just a few years earlier was scrapping it out in the second division was now the undisputed king of Europe. And the best part? They made it look like it was meant to be. No fluke, no lucky breaks, just sheer determination, incredible teamwork, and the genius of Brian Clough. At this point, Forest wasn't just a football team. They were a symbol of what's possible when belief meets hard work. They weren't supposed to win one European Cup, let alone two, but they did. And in doing so, they cemented their legacy as one of the greatest underdog stories in sports history. Well, this is happening again. With Nuno taking a page from Brian Clough's tactics, Nottingham are challengers for the league this season. They can win and go back to the glory days, with most people calling them the new Leicester. But what do you think? Can they? Well, let me know in the comments section. Thank you very much.